right, I think we have record. So today we are going to try an attempt at a little video technology information sharing at a time when we find ourselves confined to our households and needing to find activities that we might not have normally been into before, but with limited resources, space, etc. We need to start being creative as this situation we're in looks to be like it's going to be for a while. And as we all know, if we let things slide for too long, that return back is very difficult and extra hard on us. So some of you may not be set up with the luxuries of rowers and treadmills and such, and or bikes and trainers, but at this time you might be trying to figure out what means might be a worthwhile investment for yourself, and weighing out the financial part of it, the space part of it, and maybe what you will want to use after we get out of this isolation. A treadmill's not a bad idea for those that like running, but a decent treadmill I think would cost you, and Chris can confirm this, cost you a lot more than a simple bike and trainer. A rower isn't bad in price, but really when we get out of this, if the next step to continue rowing will be much more difficult than it would be to continue your cycling. So Chris Check here from Pedalhead, expert on bikes and everything about them, is going to answer some questions for us. And we're going to keep the questions to 3 to 5 because we know that Chris will go off on many tangents, and we want to keep this our YouTube, our first attempt here, within a time frame that we can keep all your attention span. So without further ado, we will give the floor to Chris. Let's start with just the first question. If I don't own a bike or trainer and know much about it, and I think that maybe it's something to consider. It's something I can do with my family once we get out of here, and maybe I have some buddies that have been talking me into it for a while. With all the different options out there, what do we want to consider and weigh in on our decision in looking at a bike?
That's a good question. There's a lot of choices in bikes these days, Kevin, and people can get pretty confused and overwhelmed when they walk into a shop, or especially if they go online and try to figure it out themselves. There can be a lot of options that just seem overwhelming, and you're almost paralyzed with indecision because you're not sure what to do. We always ask people, what do you plan on doing with your bike? Are you going to be riding around the neighborhood with kids? Are you going to be using it as a fitness tool where you're going out for longer rides and pushing yourself a little harder? Are you interested in riding off-road or off-pavement, as we refer to the lighter gravel trails and rougher pavement areas? So first and foremost, you want to figure out what you're going to do with the bike. And we always like to say here at the shop, buy the bike that's going to be doing 80% of what you want to do, not looking at bikes that are maybe going to look after the 20% of what you maybe, hopefully, sometime in the future will do. That way you can kind of weed it down and answer a few of those questions. And budget can factor in, but some people aren't even really sure what bikes cost these days. So go into it with an open mind and take it from there.
All right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of new bikes that have come out now. I think the gravel bike seems to be on the forefront. It seems pretty versatile. You know, I'm not, if I'm someone here that isn't really been into cycling yet, so I don't know about the possibilities of group rides, grand fondos, maybe some racing. What are, you know, I want to maybe sort of look after a lot of things with one bike. What do I want to consider?
Yeah, another good question, Kevin. You must have done your homework here. Must have stuff written down in front of you. So gravel bike, you mentioned. Gravel bike's probably the worst term we can use for it these days, especially in Alberta, although it does kind of cover off a category of bikes that's really, really popular right now. We prefer to call them adventure bikes. Gravel, when we talk about gravel in Alberta, or at least this part of the country, gravel normally gives us this idea of driving down a country road and we've got this deep gravel that nobody would ever want to ride a bicycle on. The idea behind gravel came really more from California riding or places in the US where we would maybe call it a dirt road as opposed to gravel. So don't think quite in terms of that loose, crazy, large chunk gravel that you might see outside of Edmonton or the surrounding areas. So adventure bikes, or what some companies are calling gravel bikes, they really can be the Swiss Army knife of bicycles. They have the ability, with clearance in the fork area and the back of the frame, that you can put a little bit larger tire on there than a conventional pure road bike. And those larger tires are more volume and the ability to have knobs or treads on the tire. That's going to allow you to get off pavement. So maybe some of the light single track, hard packed clay and dirt trails in our river valley, or some of those gravel or dirt roads that we're talking about riding outside of the city. The neat thing about a gravel bike or an adventure bike is that you can also put narrow, smooth tires on it like a road bike. And so as long as you don't go super narrow, and most road bikes aren't using as narrow tires as we used to have. So we're going with wider, smooth road race tires anyway. Those will fit on a bike like this. You've got a bit more of an upright riding position than what you'd have in, say, a race road bike, but it's not as upright as what you'd find on a mountain bike. So it's fairly comfortable to ride an adventure road bike, but you still can set it up with the handlebars low for more performance or athletic riding. The gear ratio on a gravel or adventure bike up front and in the back allows you to climb steeper, shorter climbs that you maybe find in our Edmonton River Valley, but still has a pretty good top speed. Riding a gravel bike with you last summer, you probably remember I was able to hit about 50 kilometers per hour, but after that I was kind of at a disadvantage to people who are on road bikes. But 50 kilometers an hour is pretty fast, and most people aren't going to ride across the flats for too long of a period at that speed. So again, a gravel bike can be sort of a one tool to almost rule them all. It's not a mountain bike. It's not a pure road race bike, but it definitely finds some good common ground if you're just looking at one bike.
And I think those also, excuse my very technical terms, come with added bolts and things like on the frame. So if people wanted to start to commute, you can go saddlebags. Is that the case with most gravel bikes?
Yeah, it's true. So the bolts or mounts on the frame that we would put either dual water bottle cages on, or maybe a small pack to carry some tools or something to keep you going on a longer ride. You're going to see those on adventure bikes. Some bikes, this one doesn't have it, but some bikes will have extra water bottle mounts or frame mounts at the fork and the back end of the bike, so that we can make sure we get extra cargo space on the bike, extra water for really long rides. Fenders, racks, they're really utilitarian bikes in that you can use it as almost like a race bike if you're interested in that. You could also use it as your daily driver to commute, where you'd want fenders and racks so you can carry stuff to work and not show up wet and dirty.
Now, looking, obviously everyone's kind of in the middle of some different times now, and budgeting does become a big factor for many. What do they need to consider, or how low can you go to be happy with your bike and still get out in the spring and feel safe and fast on it, and I guess for those that really take a liking to it, how high can you go for when you're looking at price and what you get for those prices?
Well, we always like to say here in the shop, Kevin, quality is not expensive, it's priceless. That said, there's a lot of value in these types of bikes right now. I think if you're interested in an adventure bike that you don't feel like you didn't buy enough bike, if you really do get into it, you don't feel like you're always wanting to maintain your bike because you didn't spend enough on the parts and pieces for how much riding you're doing. I think if you look at bikes just over $1,000, that's a good starting point. At that price point, you're going to find bikes that have aluminum frames. Normally, they'll have a carbon fiber fork to make the ride a little smoother up front. You're going to get decent enough componentry or running gear on the bike that, again, you're not going to feel like you underspent if you start riding your bike more. And it's going to be stuff that's easy to maintain. It doesn't have a high cost of maintenance. So I would say in the $1,300, $1,400 range is going to get you a bike that you're going to be really happy with, even if you start using it more or want to use it for different applications. And of course, the sky's the limit. We go from aluminum frame bikes with carbon forks that have good entry level to intermediate level parts. Then we keep that frame and fork and go up a step into higher quality parts that are designed to perform better under duress or over longer periods of time, more riding. And then it switches over into carbon fiber frame. So now not only the fork is carbon, but the whole frame is carbon, making the bike considerably lighter and a little smoother to ride. It's something to consider for some riders in that these bikes don't have suspension on them, so there isn't a shock absorber front or rear. Some bikes are working on um, light duty suspension on a bike like this, but for the most part, if we're keeping the price under $3,000, that's not an option. It's going to be rigid, and so having anything on the bike that can help make the ride smoother, be it higher volume tires or carbon fork, or if the budget allows in the kind of 3,000 and up range to have a full carbon fiber frame, money well spent.
Can you would these price ranges apply if we were talking specifically a road bike? If I had some buddies or some plans that they're really adamant that I need a cool road bike in order to fit in or pursue whatever goals I might have once we get outside. Can we look at the same, I guess, levels of pricing for what you get for a road bike versus what you're showing here with the gravel bike?
Yeah, they're pretty comparable. If you're not really interested in the versatility of getting off pavement, or you're maybe more experienced cyclist and you do want to just concentrate on a road bike, the prices are generally about the same. Road bikes may dip down slightly lower in price. We're seeing some pretty good values in some brands, just under $1,000, kind of in that $800 to $1,000 mark. And those are bikes that definitely get you in the game. As you spend money on road bikes, we're going to drop weight. Us being the engines on these things, any weight that you can save in the bike is going to present itself in an easier movement down the road with less effort by you. So some people will want to buy down the weight of their bike by getting lighter weight parts out of higher end materials. So we retain the durability, we retain the performance or increase the performance, but we're also going to have to spend some more money at that point. But generally speaking, gravel bikes and road bikes are going to be in the same price zone if we're comparing apples to apples.
Okay. Now, once I get my bike, with what's happening, I need to consider what I'm going to do inside with it, I guess, at this point. Now, there's a lot of cool things out there that are great for distractions while putting in some good hard workouts. Indoor trainer type things like Peloton, which only provide workouts then for inside, as they are stationary type bikes. Why would I consider, or why should someone consider jumping onto this versus some of the cool one-dimensional options out there?
Yeah, it's an awesome question that we get asked in the shop a lot, actually. The indoor trainer world, or the indoor bicycle trainer world, where you attach your bike to a device inside your home that you can ride inside and do some interactive workouts, they're not inexpensive. So a lot of customers will ask us these days, why would I spend this money on this bike and then this trainer when I could just easily go get an inside exercise bicycle? The neat thing about buying a bike and then adding the component of a trainer to it is that once the snow melts, and I'm sure it will happen one day soon, you can take this bike outside and have some fun with it, whether it's with your family or whether it's solo to either socially distance and get some fitness in, or whether that's just the way that you do your fitness. You head out for an hour or two after work or before work, whatever kind of program that you're on. When you have a bike and a trainer, you also have a bicycle that you can go outside with. So you can do multitude of different things. And cycling is still such a great family sport, and Edmonton's a great city to have a bicycle in with our awesome River Valley Path network, be it paved or not paved. And outside the city, as you and I know, there's some beautiful areas to ride in the country where there's very little traffic and some pretty nice scenery to occupy your time. So getting onto a bike is an awesome way to keep yourself fit indoors, but then have something to take outside and have some fun.
And I've no doubt there's a number of options for bike trainers, as well as you alluded to some of those platforms, I guess, in terms of the workout provider and or mental distraction for us. I think like to jump onto that. Maybe if we could try another episode, we'll see if we can break maybe one like on YouTube with this, and if so, we can put together some information to help people to figure out what to use in their basement or garage, how to find something to provide them some fitness as well as entertain them and pass some of those hours by. If people are looking for some bike information or want to come check it out, if they can do so, or look you up online, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, it's interesting times right now, as you talked about earlier. We've had incredible support from our customers and Edmontonians as a whole. Bicycle shops are considered an essential service right now, which is nice, and we do have a lot of people taking advantage of that because they commute every day to work. This is their vehicle. This is how they get around, even in cold weather. So we are allowed to be open right now. We do suggest that people not use their time in our store to do real general browsing and kind of let's call it kicking of tires and information gathering right now. We're super happy to do that over the phone. Our phone number is easy to find online, or you can send us an email through our website, which is pedalheadedm.com. And we're more than happy to answer some questions and maybe get some of the preliminary questions out of the way. We obviously know that it's going to take a few minutes to sell you a bike when you come in the store. We can do a lot without you being in the store. And when you're ready to maybe go that next step and maybe nail down exactly what kind of bike or trainer or accessories that you might need, we are still open in the store noon to 5, Tuesday to Saturday. And we're more than happy to spend a little bit of time with you in the store while definitely paying respect to social distancing and staying as clean as we can in the shop here. But we can get it done one way or another.
Okay, great. So I guess on that note, let's encourage people to check us out for a second attempt, and we'll give them information on like bikes. Trainers have they can start at a real low price and get up pretty high depending on all the bells and whistles. So I'm sure lots of questions about that, and then maybe the platforms that can be used with these trainers, whether you want to put yourself through the paces or have one of those neat programming networks sort of control your trainer for you and make you suffer without you being able to control any of it. So thanks.
Okay, until next time.
If you have any other ideas for Chris and I, information you're looking for, let us know down below. Like everybody does when they do YouTube videos, they point down below. That's where you let us know what you want. All right. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for having me. See you.